Hi, I'm back. Happy Sunday. And just a couple things. Number one, on the podcast this week, there is a YouTube playlist of some of the great channels that I found on YouTube recently that I find really inspiring. And I'll put the link to that episode in the notes for the video. And on the blog, if you're watching this on the blog. And I also asked you guys to submit your questions that you'd like me to answer here on the videos. And I got a really, really great one recently from Stacy. And she says, I'm having trouble cutting sugar from my coffee. I tend to get it with syrup, like at Starbucks, and non-fat milk. Any suggestions on how to cut unnecessary sugar out? Well, I will say that if you guys have been watching this, you know that I try to not do too many artificial sweeteners, but my one exception to that is my coffee. I do use artificial sweetener in my coffee, especially when I'm doing Simply Filling because I'm trying not to use up the points. But the thing is, in my experience, and again, this is totally just anecdotal, my own experience, the problem for me with artificial sweetener is the same problem as sugar, which is that it's the cravings that it starts to kick out. So when I used to use sugar in my coffee, I used to notice that like when I would start out, I would have maybe a teaspoon of sugar. And then pretty soon it would need to be 2 teaspoons of sugar for it to be sweet enough for me. And then pretty soon it would have to be 4 teaspoons of sugar. And then before I knew it, I was just like dumping a whole bunch of sugar in. So that was one of the reasons I switched to artificial sweetener for my coffee. But even with artificial sweeteners, the problem with them is that a lot of them, your body responds to the artificial sweeteners as though it's sugar, in that sometimes you can have an insulin response, but also what it does is it kicks off the sugar cravings, because sugar is like a drug. At least that's how it is for me. When I start to have sugar, I start to crave more and more and more. So I have to be really, really careful, even when I'm using artificial sweeteners in my coffee, because I do notice that they can sometimes trigger sugar cravings for me. So if I didn't keep a food journal, I wouldn't realize that that's what's happening. So what usually happens is I'll start using the artificial sweeteners a little bit, and then I'm using more and more and more. And then I'm starting having more sweet treats than I normally would. And then I notice I'm feeling kind of blech. And I look back at my food journal and I realize like, man, I'm eating a lot of sweet stuff. I guess it's because I've been having these sugar cravings from all the artificial sweeteners. So case in point, I started using those squeezy things that you flavor water with, which are great. And I was like, for a once a day treat, awesome. But pretty soon I was not having water without the squeezy thing. And I'm also like having Rice Krispie treats, which are 2 points, and they're gluten-free, once a day, and then twice a day, and then 3 times a day. So it can get out of hand really, really quickly. So what I would say though, and then the other thing is, I can't just cut it cold turkey either. If I just cut the sweet stuff cold turkey, I'm not very pleasant to be around. So for me, what I have to do is I'm constantly like dialing it up and dialing it down and dialing it up and dialing it down. So having said that, when I do get a coffee at like Starbucks or something like that, the first thing I ask them is, what sugar-free syrups do you have today? Because it changes, right? And usually one of them sounds good. So when I get the latte, I get it with the sugar-free syrup. And that's like my big treat. And I try not to have any more sweet stuff for the rest of the day when I do that. I really, really try to be good about it. But I don't always like spending the money at Starbucks or something like that. So I sometimes will buy the flavored sugar-free syrups and myself. So for the price of like 2 lattes, you can buy a gigantic bottle of sugar-free Torani syrup in any flavor that you like. And that will last you like at least a month. I mean, it's huge. A little goes a long way. But even the Torani syrups are a little bit sweet for me, but I'm going to put a picture just so you know what they look like. So the Torani syrups can be really, really yummy. And what I like about them too is they're sweetened with Splenda, which is sucralose, as opposed to aspartame. I really don't like aspartame. Of the artificial sweeteners, it's pretty much the worst one. It's got the worst effect on your body, but I also just really don't like the taste. It's very chemical to me. And I also notice when I have things with aspartame, I really don't feel well afterwards. So I just try to avoid it altogether. So the Torani syrups are sweetened with Splenda, which is sucralose. But I want to talk about natural sweeteners. There are two really great natural sweeteners that I love that don't trigger the same liver response, they don't do the sugar spike thing that a lot of the other artificial sweeteners do. Insulin spike. One is stevia, which is like 1,000 times sweeter than sugar. So if you just have it straight, it tastes bitter because it's so sweet. So a little stevia goes a long way. And I'll put pictures of both of these too. Stevia, my husband really loves stevia. He actually buys it in a liquid form. So they put a teeny bit of stevia in a lot of glycerin, which is just plain, doesn't taste like anything, to dilute it. And so you have a little more control over how sweet it is. My personal favorite, and it's just a plant. Stevia just grows. It's just a leaf that's extremely sweet. My favorite artificial sweetener that's natural is called xylitol. It's spelled with an X, X-Y-L-I-T-O-L. It's actually a sugar alcohol. But I find it's the one that tastes the most like sugar. It does not cause those sugar cravings I was talking about that like Splenda totally does for me. And it's a little pricey, but I try to get it when I can, and I can't always find it. I can usually find it in a health food store. You can order it online. I'll put a picture of it so you know what it looks like too. And I find, yeah, it doesn't have that kind of slightly bitterness that stevia can sometimes have. It tastes a lot like sugar, and it's my favorite one. And it also is good for you. It actually has some benefits as far as your digestive health, and it's actually good for your teeth, oddly. So a lot of times gums will have xylitol in them. You might see them in gum. So those are the ones that I really like, but it is a dangerous thing. I mean, artificial sweeteners can, apart from the chemicals that can be in them sometimes, they can still trigger those sugar cravings, just like sugar. So you just have to be aware. And if you're keeping a food journal, that's the best way to notice, like, am I riding the sugar roller coaster? Are we going up or are we going down? I'm always kind of either going up or down. And I wouldn't know if I weren't keeping a food journal, is what I'm trying to say. So I hope that answers your question. I hope that that's helpful. And please, guys, don't be shy with your questions. I would love to answer them. That was a really, really good one because I totally am dealing with that all the time. So until then, have a happy rest of the summer. There's only a little bit left, and see you guys soon. Bye.